Asana is the doorway, but the real nectar of the practice is moving into stillness. That's really important when you're teaching asana, which is the anatomy and asana kind of go together. That's where sometimes we get a little lost in the details and we start thinking that, oh, I need to know these muscles, I need to know that, or I'm not really a yoga teacher, or people might get injured or whatever. So what we're really wanting to remember is what we talked about the first night, and that is yoga is the cessation or the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind, so that we can see ourselves more clearly. We can see literally what it means is so we can see our true splendor. And then it goes on later in the second book, which is more, the first book is What is Yoga? The second book is How to Do Yoga. And the second book says basically that asana, that's the first place that asana is described. And it's basically a balancing of those two energies that we've been talking about, sthira and sukha. So when we're practicing again, that's a really important thing to remember. And you'll hear it over and over again. I'm going to read some quotes to you about that. But as we're moving through the practice, the reason why I have these set out here is so that you can have a little bit of, as we're moving, and we'll move slowly since it's just us and we can play around a lot. You can ask questions. We can touch things and feel what's going on. We're going to integrate and feel it first in our body. And then if you want, you can look at these. These are some of the things I'm going to be doing with you. Several of you guys have mentioned that you like Jason Crandall, and I have a bunch of his flows. And this one is about hips, and then that's about hips. We'll work on with feet and hips mainly today. Okay, so go ahead and start our little practice. When and if you're ever wanting to teach yoga, I used to be so much into music that I would just have these special playlists, and sometimes they were my choice of music, which isn't everybody else's choice, and I was way into music, so I was like, I'm really proud of this song and everything. But one of my favorite stories is my daughter took this training, and it was pretty funny because I was away on a retreat, teaching a retreat, and I got this application reading, and then it's like, that's my daughter. But anyway, she was teaching and she really likes, I guess you call it outlaw country or something like that, and which I do too. But she was just so proud of her playlist, one of her first classes, and she was cranking out all this stuff, and people were just like, stop it. For one thing, there's a lot of lyrics, and lyrics make it hard for people to really focus on their bodies and all that. It can be done, but just a little tidbit. This is one of my favorite playlists, and it is called East Forest, and then Desert Dwellers will be the other person that's in it, but there are no lyrics. So coming into what you feel is that balance of steadiness. Let's build a house first. Let's do the steadiness. So whatever it's much better anyway, because I'm better. Somebody else is going to, thank you. So we're going to feel that sense of connection to the earth. And your legs can be however you want it. In fact, you could be laying on your side or belly or whatever. This position actually tends to let people feel more safe than some poses, especially teaching trauma-sensitive classes. I find that rather than laying on the ground for meditation at the end, this is a better pose. Maybe sitting with your back against the wall is nice too. You feel more safe. You've got that wall behind you, or a blanket over you. So there's many ways to make this help set people up so they feel grounded. Right now, if you are seated, you might rock side to side and feel as if your sit bones, bottom of your ischial crest, they're touching the ground. You might even rock forward and backward a little bit, feeling your tailbone in the back, maybe your pubic bone in the front. And again, thinking of that pelvic girdle as a bowl, bring it into level. And then from there, feel your legs as if you could find a little bit of a slope moving from your hips down to your knees. And if you don't find that slope, you might come up a little bit on a bolster. It's not a bad thing, but when you are higher up and there's a little bit of a slope, this muscle gets to relax a little bit more. And so, here, if I were here, you'll see people doing this all the time. And they're like, I'm not going to use a prop. It's not cool, my husband. So this just gives you a little bit more freedom in your pelvic girdle. And we can test that here. Go ahead and rock your pelvic girdle forward and backward. And you'll notice that there is a little bit of an ease there. And then your legs reaching down into the earth like roots into the earth. Feel yourself garnering energy from the ground beneath you. And then from there, from your navel, up. Lengthen your crown towards the sky so you feel like a potted plant that's rising towards the light. And then just right there at your navel, take a moment. I remember this, I think, from great high school geometry classes. Rays and lines. Rays are like two lines that move infinitely in one direction and then in the other direction. Lines being that the totality of that. So just feel as you inhale down, as we naturally do, we breathe in through our nostrils, and because our lungs expand, air goes into our lungs, expanding the belly. And then from your navel up, feel yourself exhaling up and through the crown. So continue like that. I'm going to talk just a little bit about that. If you were to jump, I want to just take a standing jump, which we'll do later. You kind of bend down, take an inhale, and then with your exhale, you jump on up. And so think that a little bit as you're sitting. We'll do this literally later in the practice, but right now, just as you inhale, breath moving down because the lungs have expanded. They expand because your brain tells the diaphragm it needs more oxygen. Expand, please. So it's an automatic process, autonomic nervous system. And then as you exhale, your belly squeezes in like the bottom of a tube of toothpaste to send the air out. You might exhale out the mouth a few times. Now begin to feel that process we were talking about before. As you inhale down, feel your lungs expanding, your heart receiving oxygen, and sending that oxygen throughout your body, through all the little ways that it does. We call them rivers, nadis, all to your fingertips, to your toes, up to your crown. Exhale, you feel that transport system moving out. And we're taking in not just oxygen as we breathe in, and we take things in from our skin as well, and other openings, sound from our ears, etc. As we're coming in with our breath, we're taking in. As we exhale, we're letting go. And let's just take a moment or two to visualize as we're breathing in. Breathe in gratitude. Breathe out, let go, forgive. Continue with that for a few more cycles of breath. The idea is linking our physicality, our physical movement with our brain. Our brain is plastic. We can help change it a bit. So just feeling here that connection between body, mind, and your brain is your body, of course. So body, brain, and your mind, your emotions, and everything. And of course, we're also interbeing with the world around us. We're connecting with everything here in this room, with each other, and even outside of the room. So bring your palms together to celebrate that connection. We have a sound that we make, and this sound is a sound it's called the universal sound. And it is all about that connection of body, mind, and spirit, that connection with each other. It's been used for thousands and thousands of years, as long as yogis have been sitting and putting their palms together. So understand that you're taking part in something that's very ancient, holy, that has meant a lot to people. So it's an honor for us to sit here together and share that, those that are still to come. So let's take a moment to think about that, to feel that in our body. And then we're going to do 3 ohms, and you'll feel that difference. We'll each begin and end at a different time. So we'll start by taking a deep inhale, and then we'll exhale from our belly up and out with an ohm 3 times. Inhaling, bring your hands to your chest, and you might still feel that vibration, that sound created when any sound is made. I don't know if any of you are musicians, but when 2 things rub together. And so that sound, that vibration is of our vocal cords, rubbing together, but just feel that the vibration that you've cultivated with that. And again, know how powerful you are. Your energy. Yogis call this your dharma, little dharma with a little d. That's part of the big dharma. Just feeling that sense. And then we're going to bring our palms back together, and pinky and thumb going together. You can bring your elbows in just for a little stretch of your back body, but then you might want to take them back out. This is the lotus mudra, and lotus is like the symbol of yoga, of course, because it is no mud, no lotus. It recognizes the fact that we all have mud in our lives. We all come from some mud. We all came from some mud probably to get here, literally. But anyway, in all these little puddles and stuff in Southeast Asia, India, in Sri Lanka, where yoga was born, they're all over the place, all over, literally. And this is that idea of, even though these come out of the sewers and the mud piles and whatever, this beautiful plant, this beautiful lotus rises. And another interesting thing about lotuses is they have their leaves or blooms have kind of a waxy skin, I guess you'd say, on their leaves, so they don't get wet. I mean, they come out of the wet, but their blooms are kind of impermeable. So just taking that in mind, bring your palms back together, bring your elbows back together. And we're just going to take our arms over to one side. I've learned so much from teaching the special kids that I've been teaching for the last month at Jump. And one of the things is what I've been doing right here. I take it in a little bit simpler language, but they love this. They love to do this. They love to take a lotus up and over their head. And so this, I think, is a really important thing for us to remember is embodying these principles can really help people understand it more. Now from here, we're going to take our hands up and interweave your fingers and then bring your palms over your head, but looking overhead, switch up. So the awkward one, the one that you never do, is the first finger. And then I know it's a brain teaser. And then just as you take it up, you'll be like, well, that feels a little bit different than it usually does. And you can go back and experiment if you don't believe me. And just take your arms back any amount. So we're going to do this against the wall. So just kind of noticing how it feels here. And then when we get against the wall, you'll be like, oh, okay. And then we'll take our arms down. And this is a pose called expansion. Okay, so I'm going to let you guys be here just for a second, and then I'm going to tell you the story because I don't want to keep you too much longer. And let's take our fingertips back and bring our legs out in front of us just for a moment. And then you can go back to that pose of expansion if you want. The story is this. There was an artist, her name is Paige Bradley. She's, alive now. She created a statue of a woman sitting like this, a beautiful bronze statue. It wasn't selling, it wasn't popular. So she had the idea to take it down, crack it open, and put lights on the inside. And then it became very famous. And it was sitting in the New York Harbor for a long time. Now it's traveling all around the world. But that was her idea is, this is beautiful. Everything was perfect. But by cracking it open, it allowed her to feel more, allowed people to relate more like, yeah. And you've always heard that story, cracks are where the light comes in. So that's kind of back again to that idea of lotus. Okay, now we're going to lengthen up, and this is called axial lengthening. We've been studying the planes of movement. I think I've taught them some, and I think probably Angela did too. So your planes of movement, the most important one probably is this one that's in mountain. So you can take your hand behind your back and feel that little curve inward in the back of your neck. Now, press your tailbone down a lot, press your crown up a lot, and you'll feel that those curves kind of flatten a tiny bit. And then tuck your chin slightly in. Okay, so now you have this vertical axis. And now we're going to take our feet back out again. Take your hands down. Okay, maybe stretch out the top of your legs. They get kind of tight when we're sitting. And we're going to do a twist. So taking your feet wider than hip distance apart. Just take them over to the right and notice how that feels. And look over your left shoulder. Do you feel that twist? Like, again, as we've been talking, the rib cage gets to move a little bit more. Your pelvic girdle and lumbar are going together, and then your rib cage can take a little bit deeper twist. Okay, and then go to the other side. And the same thing. Okay, so this, as we know, is called the transverse plane of movement. Okay, so back and forth a couple of times. If you want to take it tighter, you can do something like this. Or if you want to take it lower, you can do something like this. Let's go back and forth a few times and just feel this pose. A lot of what we're doing in yoga is listening, as this article says. We're learning to listen, to pay attention. We have a relationship between our brain, our mind, and our body, and we're trying to be more intuitive, more understanding of that relationship. I want to talk about preventing injuries today. This is the main thing you can teach people is to listen. That will help you prevent injuries. You're not going to be able to prevent every injury, but if you teach people to listen and pay attention to it, that really hurts right there. And of course you can say, well, don't do it then, but little by little we get more attuned to that. Okay, so we rock back and forth. That's the transverse plane. And then the last plane of motion we'll come into, you can bring your feet together. If that feels okay, just set up. It might be a little difficult, so if it feels better to have your legs out straight, I'm going to take us into the lateral plane. And in fact, you might want to do this. Let's take out our right leg and take our left hand out to the side, take our right fingers next to us, and just lean over. Now you're going to use your left hip to kind of anchor you, just kind of reaching over, side bend. Feel that? Now your spine is moving in that crescent shape. And then we'll just go to the other side and do the same thing. So you've been through these a lot, but I think it's important. I usually teach these in some variety every time I begin a class, because this is letting people get ready to know what to do. And then we're going to come back with our feet together. I think I did this with you. Have you guys done this with me? The PNF work. We did that Friday night, I think. Just do a little bit of that so we can understand that more. The PNF is proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. And it's basically, we did it with the hands. So we're going to do it with the feet. And you can even add this if you want. You might want to sit up higher. You can push your feet, and you can also gently here, not on your knee, but right here. And we'll hold it for that 7 seconds. So one deep exhale, one long inhale when you're finished, and then release. And then go ahead and move deeper into the pose. This is called Asana, bound ankle pose, or sometimes people call it cobbler's pose. Just kind of tipping forward any amount. You might find that little work, and that's working with your reflexes by kind of over contracting for a moment, then your muscles are more ready to say, okay, I'll go ahead and twist. I'll go ahead and stretch. All right. Now from here, we're going to go ahead and lower to the ground. So I'm going to stay up just so I can talk to you easier, but just lower to the ground. And you can keep your feet like this, or if you want to bring them back to that. And we're going to work a little bit with our low belly. So back to your hands on your low belly. As you exhale, press your low belly into the ground so you can feel that action. As you inhale, let it rise. Exhale, push in. Inhale, let it rise. And then you can start becoming a little bit more active with it. So as you exhale, pressing your low belly into the ground, you might gently guide your knees together. I think we did this on Friday night too. Just feel that little bit extra squeeze. And then as you inhale, your knees go back out again. Okay, just like that. Now, if that's fun for you, you could also take your hands behind your head, and as you exhale, shoulders come up, knees come up, and now you're moving all the way up from your low belly, your transversus abdominis, your deepest core muscle, which is really, really important, as I was emphasizing Friday night. But then we're also now starting to work the most superficial, the muscle that's on top, the rectus abdominis. Okay, and then we'll go ahead if you want and come up and lift our feet off the ground and extend our legs out. Now we're working those two muscles, the most superficial and the most deep. And then bring your knees into your chest. And as if you're drawing a circle on the ceiling, circle around the triangle shape of your sacrum, the sacred bone, the big circle. And then we're going to work with the muscle that's in between the TBA, the transversus abdominis, and the rectus abdominis, with working the muscles on the side, your obliques. So bring your shins up, so parallel to the floor. And as you extend your right leg, we're just going to twist towards the left. And if you could take one hand off behind your head and feel those muscles there on the side of your right waist, those are your obliques. And then come back in and do the other side. So you have two sets of obliques. You have your internal and your external, and they actually work like that, like you're putting your hand in a high pocket here, and then like you're putting another hand from your hip upward, so that you can kind of feel that action. So these are the muscles that help protect our back, and these are the muscles. This is like working from your core. We want to work from our core in our principles, practicing the balance of sukha and sthira, but also in the practice of our physicality. Okay, I'm going to talk about this again since we don't have other people here in the practice. One thing that I didn't mention that I wanted to tell you is that Om, I mentioned it's a connection with all of us, but it represents the three deities, which I've talked about a lot. Shiva, the removal of waste, Brahma, the seed planter, and Vishnu, the nurturer. And one of my favorite teachers says yoga is 90% waste removal. So Shiva is kind of what we're working with in our practice here, waste removal. When you're ready, put your feet on the ground and lift your hips up into bridge pose and feel your back body working. So that's your back stem. We work with the front of our body. That's sometimes called the anterior power meridian. This is your posterior power meridian, and it runs from your arches of your feet up through your back leg, back hips, back, all the way up to the back of your tongue there in your neck. I know that sounds kind of weird, but that's kind of that back stem. They're doing a lot of research with fascia. I've been handing out to you guys fascia handouts. You can come on down and just draw your knees into the chest and make another circle on your back. But they're finding, so the bandhas follow along that path. You've got your pada bandha, your foot, you've got your pelvic floor, your root bandha, you have your low belly bandha, you have the back of your throat. And they found, researchers in modern, fascia research have found that there's a thick sheath of fascia that runs along those same lines. Also, in Chinese medicine, the meridians run primarily along those lines. Okay, so now we're going to get a little bit more into our hips. So put your feet down on the ground, and let's just start out with a kind of a supine. I've been calling it iguana because I just came from the land of iguanas, Costa Rica. But let's take it, but it's lizard is what it's supposed to be. So take your right knee up, and we're just going to come into a pose that feels like we're in a lunge. Okay. Some people might say, oh, this is half of a happy baby. And your left hand is resting on the top of your left leg. Your right knee is in that somewhere close to a right angle. Notice how that feels. Okay. We're going to roll over more towards our right hip. Okay. And that's taking the weight off of your left hip a little bit. Lift up your left leg and just kind of swing it out and back a little bit. And notice what you feel. This is affecting your sacrum there. And we did a little bit of this on Friday night, but I'm just taking it a little further here. Notice what feels tight. I notice tightness in my left inner thigh and in my right inner thigh. And then you can kind of rock back and forth a few times. And then we'll bring our left leg back up and plant our right ankle on our left knee to come into thread the needle. And thread the needle again before you go into it deeper. You might take your hands to the top of your legs and just push the top of your legs away from you a little bit. So as you probably learned yesterday, the hip socket is where the top of your femur fits in, your acetabulum. And that space can get very congested. There's a lot of action going on there. And it's also a vulnerable place, overstretching. So it's just kind of nice to be aware of it. And then from there, relax your heel of your hand from the top of your legs and take your hands behind your left hamstring and just draw your left knee in any amount. Roll around your left ankle in one direction and the other. And your right ankle, just for the safety of your knee, we're going to keep our right ankle in what's called dorsiflexion. And if you have these handouts that you can read all about this a little bit more if you want more. I'm sure you learned yesterday a lot too. But we want to keep our knee and our foot pointing in the same direction most of the time. And a lot of people, when they get in shapes like this, they'll just let the force of their pulling kind of bring their ankle out of dorsiflexion and into this, and then they got to start getting some pulling on your ankle. So one way to protect your students, Sean, I know you were interested in this, is to have people keep that foot in dorsiflexion, okay? Your left foot can roll around because it's not getting the same torque as your right. So just, you can play with that. And then just before we leave this, let's go ahead and straighten our left leg. On Friday night when we did this up in the air, I had you guys do a proprioceptive PNF thing, but we'll just do it like this for now. And then bring your right knee right on top of your left knee. So we're going to come into a little tighter squeeze here. We're going to have your right knee right on top of your left knee. Take your hands to the shins. And as you exhale, pull your knees in. And then inhale, release, exhale, pull in, inhale, release. And here, again, you can feel it in your own body. You can feel that, oh, my ankle can roll around now because it's just not getting the force of your knees. Okay, now from here, put your left foot back down on the ground, but keep your knees crossed as they are. Push your hips over to the right, and we're going to take our knees down to the left. And then reach your right arm out to the right. You could let your left hand rest on your right leg if you want, and simply notice, okay? Now, if this feels too much, it's a nice idea to put something underneath your knee. Again, the stretch reflex. If your muscles are feeling like they're pushing me too deep into the stretch, back off a little bit so that your muscles can go ahead and relax. One of my teachers said something like your muscles are like teenagers. You have to let them think it's their idea to get them to do something. I think all people are like that.
Facing with the flat here.
You could, or the bolster. But and so if you're not feeling a big stretch this is for your right outer hip, your pure.
Yeah.
So if you don't feel anything there, or you feel very little, you're fine. You might be feeling this more in your spine. You can also scoot your hips over more towards the right a little bit. Okay. And another thing, not be getting that exact same muscle, but you could stretch your right leg straight out. So if anybody feels pain, you know what? Yeah, Noah's already kind of going into a eagle pose. It's a lot like eagle. And we'll do that later standing up so you can kind of feel that action.
Should we be doing the
Bandhas?
flying walk? right now.
Yeah, I think the problem sometimes with the word lock is it's more like a lock in a river. It's not like you have to just grip it the whole time. There'll be a moving in and out, but being aware, anytime you can be aware of your low belly is going to help protect you, even here. And then when you're ready, you can come out and we'll do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to have to scoot your hips back underneath you first, okay? And then you'll just take your other leg on top, your left leg. Well, first let's do that thread the needle. First we'll do, that's where you put your ankle on the knee, above the knee, yeah. And that's where you keep your left foot in dorsiflexion. And then you can straighten and bend that leg. There's a lot of things you can do. You can reach behind your right leg and pull it more towards you. Your right ankle could be free, your left one stays.
Why would it hurt the ankle if it was pointed?
It can hurt. It can be like, you can kind of see me. Some people might take it and go like this. That I can feel that in my knee. So pressing like that. Now, it could be that you're going to be fine. Like if your ankle is forward of it, your ankle's not going to be affected that much or your knee's not going to affect and play with it a little bit. But just know that is in this position with the pressure of your hands pulling on your upper leg. It can make your ankle affect your knee and pull either on your ankle ligaments and tendons, but also on your knee, which is more, I would say it's more scary, but yeah. Can you feel that at all? The difference? Yeah. Just play with it. And you know what? I was listening to a video the other day. She was teaching something and she said, if you don't feel it, don't worry about it. It doesn't mean that, just conceptualize it for now. And we all have really different bodies. So you have to kind of think about what is working for your body. But taking care of we'll play with this in just a second. So we can look at that a bit more. Go ahead and then close it up, doing your piriformis thing. So your left knee's on top of your right knee. So you squeeze in and you can pull your knees in a couple times to get that squeeze and soak idea. And then when you're ready to move on, you can put your right foot back on the ground, scoot your hips to the left, and bring your knees down on the right side of your body. And then we'll take the twist, scooching your hips a little bit to the left. And then we're going to come back to center, and you can come up for a second. This might be the easiest way I could show you a little bit more about that ankle knee thing. So sitting up, if you have your knee like this, and remember your knee and your ankle move together like this. So wherever your foot is, your knees should follow it. So for some people, if they're like this can either, there's a lot of force there, this can either pull on this because your foot is in a little bit different direction. When you're like this, you're more likely to be using these muscles here to help direct that action. And this, squeezing this in dorsiflexion, activates all these muscles that run up to your knee. Okay, so it's affording more stability for your knee. This is affording less stability for your knee. I can feel this more in my calf muscle when I'm pointing. And it's true. Like if you're here and you're pulling your toes back, you're stretching the back of your legs and you're activating in a contraction the front of your legs. Okay? This, you're getting a stretch in the front of your legs and a strengthening in the back of your calf muscles. So that's just kind of an interesting thing. And let's talk about feet. Shake them out a little bit. Let's see if I find my foot hand out real quickly. Is there anything I want to add? Well, if you haven't, you can look at your foot. There's just a lot going on there. And I think there's 26 joints. And I think there's 26 bones and 28 joints in your feet. So there's just a lot. And some of us have a lot of flexibility in their feet. I do. And over flexibility in most people is what causes people's problems because you have less natural stability. When your body is tight, like just by nature, my hips are tighter, the socket is more like this. And they say that there's different peoples that have my people. We're Nordic and we had these stiff little, we had to walk like this through deep snow. And so that's people that come from lots of times countries that are more warm, like Latin American countries and South Pacific and whatnot. They have more broad hips to do the things that they're doing. So there's all kinds of, what do they call that? Anthropological anatomy studies. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, we all have different things going on. And like over laxity in muscles and in your joints can cause more problems. For me, my feet this one has 3 pins in it, and this one probably will have 3 pins in it someday too. And I have titanium patellas, and a lot of that's just because of my abuse, my self abuse. I ran long distance and swam long distance, and sometimes things happen when you do that. Kayaked. So just keep in mind that laxity is something to watch for. Shoulders, same thing. People that have really, I don't know if any of you guys have a personal experience, but people that my husband has that, and he's a kayaker, and so I put his shoulder back, his humerus arm up back in his shoulder socket before on the river between rapids, and it's pretty scary. I think I told you on Friday, the only injuries that has ever happened in a class was somebody's shoulder separated just doing Warrior 2. So that's why it's important to build that house first, to build stability first. And then, people can kind of experiment with it and play with it and see where they can go.
Do you have that anatomy book? Did you bring it?
I did.
Yeah, I was just wondering about the knee.
Yeah.
It was the
DL.
That has something to do with it.
Yeah.
When your foot is flexed,
Yeah.
it's stabilizing those or something.
Exactly. It
And
is.
when it's pointed, those are really vulnerable.
Yes.
And I learned the anatomy book that you have in the show.
Yeah.
What that
I'm going to show. This isn't great for the knee. This particular one is more the hip complex. We'll look for it real quickly. And wait, here we go. Anatomy. Asana. I brought this one because it's all about injuries again. Let's get to her knee real quick and see if she has some. Here we go. So, but do you all know what she's talking about? There's.
there's the one on the out, the medial and then the lateral.
Yep. In the medial, remember, we're learning that is things that are more towards the center, and lateral things that are more outside of the center, as the sound is. In the anterior cruciate, let's see what we have here.
Which is a super common
It is.
injury for people.
And skiers, I'm not seeing that exactly, but exactly. They run on the inside, in and out of the knee. They don't have that in this little book. But one more look, if you don't mind. I brought this book, not so much, somebody just gave it to me, and I thought it was, here we go. These are good pictures. A second. I'll go ahead and get the yoga books are so notorious about having. This one has a good glossary. Okay, here we go. You guys can just come. If you want to just come up and take a peek. Over here are transverses that goes across, and there should be the lateral and the medial, and then there's junk inside there too. And this, I've had damage on that. Has anybody ever had knee injuries in here?
I had knee surgery.
Oh.
But they actually don't do it anymore. But they tried to put a tack in, irritate it in hopes to bring blood flow to heal.
Yeah.
I was one of the first people they were trying it on, and it just didn't prove to be that great. Because I was young.
Yeah.
And if you're young, there's the possibility of rejuvenation.
Right.
Whereas if you're in your my age now, they wouldn't even bother.
Yeah. Yes, you're.
But it's the reason. It's really the reason that I stuck with yoga is because I was a runner.
Yeah.
And I kept trying to run after that surgery. I just hurt all the time.
Yeah.
And then I went to yoga, and I said, I'm not going to run. I'm going to do yoga. And my knees started to feel better. And I was like, I can't stop this.
Yeah.
Because I was in constant pain.
Yeah.
I was 30. And
I was too. I was really young when I had my running was just causing pain, and it was nothing. It wasn't me, or it was my patellas.
Yeah.
They were, so it can happen at a young age for sure. Does that help a little bit? But that's why. And I don't know if he goes on to address what I'm talking about, but we just want to keep.
These are the ligaments.
Yeah.
And they look like they're kind of crossed.
Yeah. You can help by also having.
Here it is. They're taut when the knee is extended. Keeps the tibia from sliding forward under the femur.
And this would be extension.
I think if we wanted to, we could probably read this. Knee to be flexed. Most common for the knee to be flexed and internally rotated with the ACL tear. I think this whole thing would probably explain why.
Do you want me to copy this and send it to you guys? I'll just read it. Get comfortable. These strong ligaments are the primary stabilizers of the knee joint. As with the collateral ligaments, they are taut when the knee is extended. This is extension. The ACL resists movement in primarily 2 actions. First, it keeps the tibia from sliding forwards under the femur. Anatomically speaking, this is referred to as anterior displacement of the tibia under the femur. The ACL, anterior cruciate ligaments, also prevents excessive medial or inward rotation of the flexed in the PCL. That's this. In lateral rotation, the ACL is lengthened and stretched over the PCL. There is a possibility that the ACL can tear when the knee is flexed and either internally or externally rotated. So that kind of goes to what we're saying. Having said that, we'll read this paragraph real quick. It is most common for the knee to be flexed and internally rotated when the ACL tears. That would be the knee is flexed and internally rotated would be something like this. Yeah. It is common for this ligament to be torn while skiing. The skiing part itself isn't risky. However, it is when the skier is about to run into someone or something and stops rather quickly. For those of you who have skied before, you know to ski with the knee slightly bent. You've also trained yourself to slow down or stop by pointing the foot in front of the skis towards each other. This is internal rotation of a flexed knee. Well, there you go. Does anybody want to stand up and demonstrate that? Do we have any skiers in here? But it's something. It would be like this, and your knee is flexed.
I thought they were talking like the knee
Yeah.
internally or externally rotating. Because if you don't have that motion and never do it,
Yeah.
and you go too far, then it tears.
Yeah, because it's not
Because it doesn't know what to do. It's
right.
Just,
Yeah.
it gives up.
Yeah. Well, and tears. So that is one. The next, I may be having to read more about this and get it to you guys in a shorter version because the whole next chapter is on ligament tear.
Well, I think Angela was it she was talking about, but she just said the knee's designed to move in the sagittal plane.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if it moves in the horizontal plane, I don't remember all the words, but it's going to be really injury prone because it's designed to only really move this way, not to side, really.
And it's really important. That brings up the very important point is its form follows function. So the reason your knee is shaped like that is for its function, which is to walk or to move us in the sagittal plane. But to your point, we're doing all kinds of other things with it. Yeah, but I would think it would be fun to explore this a little bit more, the knee joint. So thank you for bringing that up. I can feel it on my own body. I can just feel that little bit of strain if I'm doing something like, this is even fine, but there'll be a point that if I'm putting that pressure on it like that, I can just kind of feel just a little strain. Now, this is a good time to bring up something about ligaments and other soft tissue because you're going to be teaching some yin today. Yin, when I first heard about it, I was like, someone said it's there to stretch your tendons and ligaments. And I was always taught you don't want to stretch your tendons and ligaments. They're like, I always think of it as a on a drum where you have your lacing that takes the drum top to the outside of the drum. You want those to be tight. So that tightness actually allows, the drum face to have some movement, safe movement. If it relaxed, it wouldn't be working the same. But when you're doing yin, you're kind of what Kathleen, who put together our yin program, I should have opened that up to you while you were preparing for this class. But anyway, you've heard her a lot. She's an MD and she was like me. She was a runner and she was always like, you never stretch your ligaments or tendons, but because you want them to be sturdy. But the idea is she calls it awakening. And why I mentioned that she's an MD is because most MDs are pretty much by the book. You don't awaken something. They don't usually use those words, but there is energy that's brought there. So some not stretching, but some awakening. You were saying it yourself, different terminology that when you are taking your body into those shapes, they're kind of like, oh, okay, I can go there. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to tighten up and then end up, rupturing.
Because at some point you're going to go to those positions just by being a human. Even if you're not an athlete, getting in your car.
The most common injury is when people are, especially older people, are shoveling snow or leaf breaking or something like that, where you're coming forward and then you're twisting. Twisting can be a difficult kind of movement because you're coming over, your lumbar is not supposed to twist, but you've got a heavy load, and so you're pulling it into a too deep of a twist. It twists a little bit, but not as much. So it's tearing, rupturing some things. So injury. This stuff is all really great to know. I really like this book, and like I said, I just got it to use book. Anyway, he just says kind of what I was saying last night, or the first page. People are going to get hurt in your class, and the reason that you don't want him. Well, you don't want him to get hurt because you don't want anybody to get hurt. But he goes, kind of what I said, the idea that why we're doing yoga is to be able to get still and see our true radiance. And all these movements are great. We're not teaching physical fitness necessarily, other than to keep us healthy, but we're not teaching the poses to be posers or to be performers or to be in competition. We are teaching people to have a wholesome, good posture so that they are free to sit in meditation and see their true nature and get still. So that's kind of what he says in this big one thing that I'll probably just copy and send it to you all, plus that other thing, because I really like that. He did the book, or the series called Yoga Anatomy, or something like that. I can't find his exact credentials, but he said, I've been traveling the world and teaching yoga anatomy and written all these books, and here's what I think. And basically it's that this is important so that we can sit. So
there's a line in dialogue that you can mess with the gods and you can't mess with your knees.
Oh, that's great.
Everything has its limit.
That you feel any just know.
That's how I was taught, and that's why some teacher must have told me that, like, don't, when you're here, you always, flex, dorsey flex. And, other places where you don't have that opportunity. I mean, here is probably what you're talking about. Yeah, there's my knees starting to kind of rotate a little bit. It's not a pure hinge joint, and your patella is the gliding joint. So, but when you're in standing poses, you look down and you make sure that your knee and your foot are pointing in the same direction. So look at this, just fell out. So this is great. I can just copy this real easily and bring it copies next time. It just fell out of the, so it's jumping at me. It's okay. I'll do that. So yeah, thank you.
I like what you said about teaching people.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you can have groups in the world.
Yeah.
Someone will still get hurt if they're not.
Yeah, so much so. And yeah, if you can do that, it's really good. I was going to say, and there are some people that won't listen at all because they're not there for listening. I keep talking about my studio in McCall, but I had a lot of people that community up there is pretty aggro as far as competitors. We've had several people in the Olympics, for skiing, for what's the thing called, biathlon and stuff like that. And so that they would come to your class and they knew everything, and you could say, listen, watch, do this. And they'd just be like, and they would, and it was so funny. I always remember when they were in front of the room doing tree pose or something, they would have more problem than other people because they were more in that competitive state. They were like, they would get in the front and they'd be like, oh my God, I've got to be perfect here. And so that would, take them into places that, they couldn't take care of themselves. So
one of the books, I can't remember which one it was that we had reading in, but it was talking about how the number one cause of injury is ego. And I think about that because you don't want to feel stupid, right? You're kind of like, hey, what are other people doing? And not ego necessarily like trying to be the best, but even just trying to see what other people are doing, right? Like still just be like not noticeable that you're doing something different. And
it is.
And your ego at the door.
Yeah. And your cell phone. Good. Yeah, it's so true. I love that. Do they sit at the front of the entrance of it? It's not what's the studio you go to?
Well, I go to Yoga 6 right
Yoga
now.
6, yeah.
And they play music, lots of words. And I was really you mentioned that. I don't really like silence because we learn, like I've been meditating for a really long time and I can meditate
with
meditate with my kids and it's like
I'm just learned. Yeah.
Because that's life, right?
Yeah, it is.
Practicing.
It is.
So, I mean, ideally, you want that silence, but.
And people are all different. I mean, there's a lot of people. I just had to turn off because I was starting to get to the really fast music because my playlists are kind of like that. They go and then. So, but yeah. And again, I'm sure you could. Some people get really precious about their yoga. They're like, there's cat yoga, there's goat yoga, there's puppy yoga, there's yoga and wine, there's chocolate and chakras and all that. And I mean, vinyasa, when I first moved here, vinyasa was considered, because everybody's doing Iyengar and you're kind of like, you're just dancing around, you're, and Bikram, that they don't need, that, all that stuff. So I think whatever door you enter that can get you into stillness is great. And I've gone through phases where I really liked loud music, and for myself sometimes I did. So anyway, thank you guys for your questions and all that. So we're going to keep going. But to your point, since we're talking about injury prevention quite a bit here, I'm going to see if I can find one quote out of here. Oh, he just says, in teaching anatomy, I try to strike a balance between simplicity and honoring the complexity of the body. Most of the questions I receive from students are the why and what questions. Why can't I do this asana? What is restricting me in this pose? What do you do if you have knee pain? These are practical questions. The aim of this book is to be as practical as possible, while at the same time offer as many possibilities and perspectives. Don't do this to confuse you, but to keep you aware of the myriad of possibilities. And I think that's really important. It's really hard in a way to I think a yoga teacher needs to have modifications, just have a toolbox in their mind for, okay, these are modifications. But when you first start out teaching, you won't have as many, and you just have to be patient with that and just offer what you know and say, I don't know that which makes it, if people ask you a question, because I'm just saying, because she's new and is going to teach today, you just say, oh, I don't know that, and I'll try to find some answers or refer you to someone, but staying within where you're at is good. I offer a working hypothesis. In other words, I make an educated guess at what might be causing concern. It might help, and I'm willing to give them a myriad of opportunities or options. And sorry if that makes it too confusing, but it's not that our bodies are so complex and so different that we can't always say, never do this. Some people will be just fine doing that probably. I mean, if they're watching themselves, if they're very aware of themselves. Has anybody here done a lot of ballet? Yeah. Oh yeah. So it can be ballet does a lot of toe pointing, those toe pointers. And then Pilates does too. And it's just kind of good to know, and I'm not saying this at all in a pejorative way. Some of these practices are performance. I mean, you are doing ballet because it's an art, and there's an aesthetic to pointing your toes that's way more beautiful than it was. I mean, let's be honest, it is. I mean, that just, that's why we wear stiletto heels, So I don't either. I'm so glad I didn't. Anyway,
I'm wondering where the phrase "it hurts so good" is going to come in with yoga.
Okay,
I
say that.
always associated stretching with achieving the end goal of the more flexible you are, the better you will be in the long run.
Yep.
But yet in yoga, it's more like the more stable you are, not necessarily flexible.
Right. That's a great question. Great question. It is that fine song for John Cougar Mellencamp, but he's talking about emotions. But no, I don't. He's great. I've even seen him in person. But it's, and again, I am from the time when you hurt. You got to hurt. You got to push. You got to feel it. Or even I think I see coaches, because my grandkids play soccer, and I go out, and not so much as soccer coaches, but some of them too, but especially some of the other sports, the football or whatever, they're just really go kill them, go get them. And you can work hard and you can train hard and all that stuff. But I think that more and more exercise science has gone to the point that you want to play your edge, just like I was talking about the other day. There's a point where you do want a sensation, like in a stretch. If you aren't feeling anything, you want to experiment, and because we do want to stretch our muscles, we want our muscles to be strong, but we want them to be able to lengthen as well. So strong, your muscle fibers are moving in one direction, and for the most part, they're moving in a different direction if you're lengthening. We all have inherent length to our muscles. It's just like, it's just our biology. It's our DNA. We have some people have more fast twitch, some people have more slow twitch. All this is part of who we are. But within the confines of our DNA, we can increase. A lot of muscle inflexibility is from not moving. So the idea so much that stability provides us with a foundation and strength. Who was it that was saying strength first? Was it one of you guys were saying? Kimberly said that, I think.
Yeah, stability is the foundation.
Yeah.
Then you can
Yeah, that's it. Because again, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is basically the chakras. First, you have to have your muscles, your brain has to feel safe. That isn't going to do things if it's seeking homeostasis, it's trying to protect you. So if it's feeling unsafe, and that happens sometimes when we use the example on Friday where we're going like that, and our muscles are going, our brain's going, you're going to hurt yourself. In fact, you would. But so that's why it does offer that. It pulls you back in. So if we can make our brain feel safe, that's why we go slowly into stretches instead of pushing into a stretch. Other than I know we've been talking about the PNF stretching, but that's kind of a different story. It's only for 7 seconds or so. But if we can make our brain feel comfortable with the movement, then our muscles will be more compliant. In all of our physiology, it's not just your muscles, but we talk a lot about muscles, but yeah, it's a constant thing. So no pain, no gain was often what I heard, in training and in everything.
do yoga.
No, never. Sorry. And before, when I was doing other things, and I was swimming and running, and that's I think what made me just love yoga so much. It's like it's not about competing, and it's not about performing, and it's not about hurting. It's about the opposite of hurting. But it also is about tapas. And we mentioned this on Friday when I said what are the yamas and niyamas, and Carrie very accurately said it's like the and I keep saying
The serenity prayer.
Serenity prayer, yeah. And that is I said compassion is the heart of the yoga yamas and niyamas, but really those three things, and I wrote that in this little thing that I gave to you about that somewhere down there here it is up here in the second dot. Yoga's language developed from anatomical observations and experimentations over thousands of years. The laboratory was a human body, which I think is really important. Tapas, Savadhi, Pranidhana. So we do practice, we do work to the point where we might feel a little bit of like, I just kind of want to go lay down type of thing. So it's not the idea, it's hurting, but it's exertion, it's working. And Svadhyaya is just paying attention, learning. If you're doing meditation, learning from your meditation. If you're doing an asana practice, learning from your asana practice. And then surrender. It's like, but I can't control things. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do the right thing. The Bhagavad Gita was written about 800 BC. And the whole point of the Bhagavad Gita is that you do the right thing, you do the work, but without expectation of results. And the whole book is about it's a war between good and evil, but yet it's Gandhi's favorite book, who's the big peace person. But it's depicted by people going to war, and the idea is you go into battle because it's the right thing to do. In this case, it's just a metaphor. In this case, you go to battle, you do the work, you work out, and you may not win, like my Chiefs didn't win. I'm kidding, but you do the work, and so that gives you that feeling of okay, I feel okay about myself. I did the work.
Has anybody read the books?
Oh God, yes. That's my favorite. That was my first exploration. And the people that I gave it to, all my boyfriends in high school and early years of college were like, "Well, right." And so that was the best book I ever read. Thank you so much to this day.
And it's a really quick read, and I think it really represents these three crucial things of tapas.
I do too. It's a beautiful book. Herman Hesse, and it's a story of how Siddhartha was the son of a king, and the king, he was a good king, and he loved his son and didn't want his son to ever have to face anything. I'm just giving it the synopsis of I'm not giving away this ending, but anyway, it's a story. It's a famous story, but Herman Hesse wrote about it so beautifully. So he didn't let his son, Siddhartha, know that people got old or people got sick. He would always just protect him and just not let him see any of that. Siddhartha was not to know anything about the world other than happiness and joy and, like what we kind of would like our kids to be able to have too. But Siddhartha knew something was up, that there was something, he didn't quite believe in Santa Claus anymore. And so he crept out of the kingdom and went on some adventures and found he sat under the Bodhi Bodhi tree after doing a couple other avenues and found the middle way. The book is great. You want to say?
A big reason he left is like, this isn't fulfillment. Like, protect like this.
Yeah.
Only the goodness of life. Like, that's not fulfillment.
Yeah.
I want to feel life.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
And that's what he goes and does.
Yeah. So he goes to extremes.
So Buddhism, right?
Yes. Yes.
But he doesn't subscribe to single.
Well, he
is.
He became the Buddha, but they don't bring that up in that book. Consider that, yeah. But it's great. It's a great book, and the story is great. Buddhism and something called Jainism and other philosophies all came about around the same time in yoga. So that period of time was really just full blossoming with the practices, and they move together quite well. I think especially Buddhism is, and anyway, the Buddhism is the religion of no religion. So it's not, don't think of it as, people have made it into a religion by organizing it and making you do certain things at certain times. But the heart of Buddhism, like the heart of many philosophies, is very similar. It's about helping us to live with connection to that we are special. We're, part of that infinite cycle of life. So yeah. So any more questions about any of that stuff?
Can I just say something? So when I see like the tapas and practice, discernment, and surrender, I take it back to we're talking about, you mentioned in the call, people would show up and they would sit on the front row, they were prone to injury. And
yes.
I kind of look at like, this is how some people come to yoga, is they come for the tapas, the practice, and they don't see anything else. And then I see the discernment and kind of the role of the teacher, where we're teaching. And then eventually, if we do it,
if we
do it with an open heart, and we can bring that practice, discernment, and then people get to the place of surrender.
I love that.
It's going to take everybody a different amount of time, and some people may take their entire lifetime,
or
they might not ever get to surrender.
Yeah.
I kind of look at my own practice that way.
Yeah.
I haven't completely made it to surrender. I've been doing this a long time, but I think it's our job to like take people where they're at in their life, and if they come and they practice, but you don't see any of the other, just keep working with them, keep keeping them safe, keep sending that message, surrender, and then it'll all click.
I really love that. That's great, and that's exactly it. This is our mission. Our mission, we don't want to have people get injured. We want people to develop good alignment, because good alignment feels good. You feel better when your body is stable and strong and also flexible. But it's all back to what this guy said, and what you're saying is that it's to teach people to listen, and then to not be attached, like, okay, I did this, so now where's my dogs, I did my treat, now I laid down, I went down, now where's my cookie? And so we have to try to move beyond that and experience life again. The path of Siddhartha was the middle way, and the middle way is in the yamas, that brahmacharya is being okay. You're going to be sad, you're going to be happy. One of the first things of Alaf Thich Nhat Hanh's writings, he was a Buddhist monk that became famous, because he was a protester in Vietnam, and he has all kinds of books that are super simple, like breathe in, I am calm, breathe out, I am calm, and they're just so simple. But number one is breathe in, impermeability, nothing's permanent, breathe out, impermeability. And when we can accept that, then that brings us freedom from suffering. So the Buddha's Four Noble Truths are: there is suffering, there's a cause for suffering. The cause can be in, we can do something to help that cause, and it's being grasping, so here's the ways to not be so grasping all the time. So anyway, and then that's in the yamas. So I think it's interesting.
I think when I came to yoga, and I haven't been practicing yoga for that long, just a few years, but I think I developed a lot more body awareness. I would say being coming to yoga, and I'm a counselor. That's my background, and in working with people, often I think there's a lack of body awareness anyway. Like you don't even know how you feel, right? Like you can't even identify always a sensation in your body. And so when we talk about like pain or not pushing past that point, I think for me, yoga was a good place to just develop that awareness. Like I think someone not even due to ego, but might unintentionally do something just because we're so disconnected, right? Yeah, we're so disconnected, right? And so to me, yoga was coming to it new, where I was learning to like feel my body, right? Like just like be in that space and identify that, you know. So I just think about with students new to yoga, like that's a whole thing. Like it's not even necessarily performative. It might just be a lack of awareness of just
not always ego.
right?
Totally.
It's just being disconnected from the body and having to try to reconnect first, I think.
Totally. And I think back to Noah's talk about Siddhartha, but he wanted to feel. He didn't want to be in that, just space where he wasn't feeling any of that stuff. And that's what Thich Nhat Hanh says in his books is, let them joy and darkness come in, recognize them, and it's part of life. His stuff is really great. What's The Guest House? Somebody remember that poem by The Guest House it's really good.
Oh, yeah. Like you let everybody in your house at the end.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be people that come and drink tea and everything's fine, and there's going to be people that come and rip the pictures off your wall.
And it's a really great poem. But
you just let everybody.
So you can look that up. The Guest House. Yeah.
Do you have any like ways that you encourage people or messages or things that you can say to address what she just brought up about like connecting with your body? Because I know when you do breathe, that kind of like starts the process, but are there some kinds of things that you say to people that gives them permission to listen and to act on that?
I think and you, those of you who are working in counseling and things like that, I think you probably know of techniques too. But, acknowledgement of your feelings, body scans are really great. You're going to be doing kind of a body scan-ish thing, aren't you? Yeah. Yoga Nidra's, really great for that. But also hands with the special kids, I've been really having them, put their hands and feel their chest rising and falling and touching their face and just things like that. Feeling your feet on the ground, squeezing, things like that, I think are helpful. Any other ideas that you've all had?
Sometimes you have us
like brings me back.
Yeah, rubbing your feet, rubbing also like when we're in that pose like this, taking your hand and rubbing, or just here, taking your hand and feeling that type of thing. But breath too is great.
Or senses, like maybe even doing other senses.
Yes.
Like taste. What do you taste in your mouth? What are you smelling? What do you?
Yeah.
Because
that's it. That's great. I like to have people listen because yoga is listening. One of my teachers, Richard Freeman, that was his big thing. His book is listening, and it's just listening to the sounds. Go in a meditation, going as far as you can. What's the furthest away sound you can hear? And then now, can you hear yourself breathing? And sometimes I'll have them put their hands up like that, things like that. And then if there's music playing, can you hear that music? And just things, but bringing the senses is really great. Let me say this, if you look at that picture, it's so tiny, you can't see it. I just realized. Well, there is a circle. Yeah, it's
a labyrinth.
I'll tell you what it is. Okay, if you have, I could show you on my computer here, but I'll just describe it to you. It's just as easy to describe. Okay, you guys know what a Russian doll is. But I can explain it. So it's, as we said, they're called the koshas. So we have the kleshas, which I'll talk about later, but the koshas are like if you imagine yourself as a Russian doll, you know that there's like a doll on the outside, one on the in, and then in, and then in, and then in, and then one right in the center. So this is how they believe we all are. So first of all, you learned about the doshas, or not the doshas, but the earth elements. Earth, rock, comprised of earth, water, fire, air, and rarefied air. Fine. But now they're saying, well, there's even more to it than that, but it'll make sense when I explain it. So the outer sphere, and they're called koshas because kosha means sheath or jacket or shawl. Probably most, since this was developed in India, it probably meant more shawl. Your outer shawl is the anamaya kosha, and it protects you, but it also kind of shields you a little bit. So just like that shawl you just put on. Yeah. It's a sheath. So that's what we are, and that's what we mainly focus on. But underneath that, in the next kosha, we have our manamaya kosha. I can't read that either, but it's our manamaya kosha. And that is our emotions and the next one is prana. Prana is our life force. And the reason I'm saying this is the direction you go to when we're doing our yoga nidra. Thank you for double checking me. I should know that's back in easy stuff. But so the next one is our life force. So that's still kind of part of the earth. That's still kind of part of those earth, water, fire, air, and rarefied air. So the next doll in is your manamaya kosha, which is your mind, your emotions. You can remember that because of mind, manamaya kosha. The anamaya kosha comes from ana means food. So if anything that grows through food. So our outer body grows through food, then prana, life force, then mana, which is mind and emotions. And then the next one is doll in is Vijnanamaya kosha. Vijnanamaya kosha is also easy to remember because you can think of visionary. That's our intuition. Okay. And if you're listening to these, you're kind of seeing, that's a little bit like the chakras. You have your stability here, and then you start developing, and then you start getting into your breath, and then you start getting into your intuition. And then you get into Atman, which is where you realize that you are, Atman means you're a seed of the universal order. You are a little dharma in the big dharma. And so these koshas, when we're teaching, supposedly, we're supposed to be able to use them to help people. So we start with the Anamaya kosha. We start with the outside. We're going to put our hand here. We're going to listen to this sound. We're going to be with the bodily things that people are familiar with. And then that helps us to start accessing our prana, our breath. Our breath is kind of the main thing we think about. So when we're teaching, we kind of start out with the body. Even though we might have people do breathing, it's more on that vein, just trying to get them to listen. Okay, so the Manamaya kosha, that's when we can have them do some visualization. We're starting to get a little bit more into emotions. And then the Vijnanamaya kosha is usually where we're going when we're in the Shavasana. And that's where we're tapping into, hopefully we've been able to drop deeper into ourselves, into where we're really feeling our intuition. That's why Yoga Nidra is so cool, because it takes you into that.
I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Whole yogic script goes.
Exactly. It does. It takes you through to that. Someone once said KI to the third eye. So I don't know if anybody even knows what that means. KI was like a petroleum jelly that helped things lubricate. Yeah. Third eye. Okay. It's kind of a grease to get you going faster someplace. KY to the third eye. Okay. Anyway, I used to go to Burning Man. And this gal, she also went, and she actually has Ananda Yoga Studio here. It's over there on Chisholm. Yeah. Anyway, that was her camp. It was called Third Eye. KY to Third Eye. So
KY is like Kleenex for tissue, as KY is to.
You got it.
KY is a brand.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Just in case you didn't know.
Yeah. It's a. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's what it is. I mean, that's what we're doing. And Yoga Ninja is a KY to the third eye, because this is where we want to go. And this is that visionary place. And then from here, we go on up to bliss, where we're like, oh my God, like we were saying, that little drop from the wave. Oh my God, I am part of something much bigger than me. And even though I'm on a roller coaster of life, I know that I'm important. I have an important place in this whole structure of life. So I'm sure that there's a lot of information that you can retrieve from our platform. And also, I think this as this book describes, really the heart of it anyway. I think when we're operating from ethics and when we're operating from why we're doing all these asanas, the how becomes easier. When you know the why, the how becomes much easier.